Welcome back to Unsportsmanlike Conduct. I'm your host, the Hulk, Harrison Gurney, and apologise for my ropey voice this morning. I was up very late watching the Super Bowl. Um, let's just get straight into it because today's episode is just going to be reviewing what we saw in the Super Bowl and seeing what thoughts we can take away from what we saw last night. Firstly, I've just put up my preview thoughts from my video last week, just so that everybody can see the kind of game that I thought it was going to be going into it. Because to be honest, I'm quite happy with what I previewed in the end. Um, I obviously didn't get the score exactly right, but I'll get into some of the things that I thought we were going to see um, in a moment. Firstly, Seattle just proved that they were a cut above this year. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be a cut above next year, or that they really had like a quality gap to everybody else in the league, but they performed so well this season all year. And as I touched on last week, the only reason that really they were doubted at all was Sam Darnold, and people didn't really know what he was going to be. And he's proved everybody wrong this year. Credit to him. He's really turned up, but credit really goes to Mike McDonald for what is a special defense. Watching that defensive display last night, I'm a big fan of watching defensive football. I think points should be earned, and they made New England earn every point that they got last night. That was that was an onslaught. I imagine that was very difficult for Pats fans to watch. Um, and to be honest, the only points that New England really got were when they had to push the pace. Like Seattle gave them absolutely nothing all game. So credit to them and credit to Mike McDonald because he's done a fantastic job with that defense. It was really special to watch. Um, so let's go through a few of these points from my preview. So I think both defenses did play very well. New England giving up 29 points in the end was not it wasn't a barometer of how well the defense played, because Drake May gave two interceptions up and a lost fumble. Like you can't do much with that if you're a defense. Um, I felt for them a little bit. I mean, Christian Gonzalez was outstanding last night, absolutely outstanding. His pass protection was phenomenal. That could have been a lot worse for New England if he hadn't been playing at the level he was. Um, I do think as well both offenses struggled, which if it hadn't been for the fumble recovered for a touchdown by Nwosu, the scoreline would have been very close to what I predicted, actually, which I do think is a fairly low scoring game, especially given the offensive output of these two teams during the regular season. Um, so it's really the biggest impact on the way that this game unfolded was Kenneth Walker. I'm a big fan of Kenneth Walker. I did not think that he was going to have. He had like 162 all-purpose yards or something. Let me find the exact stat. He had 161. He had 161 total yards from scrimmage, 135 rushing. That's a fantastic performance, and I knew he had it in him. He's one of those players that sort of either gets you 2 yards or gets you 30 yards. Like it was very on the board that Seattle was going to be running a lot in this game because they were going to be up, and he was going to end up pulling off a couple of big runs, and he played fantastically. His patience and poise, waiting to find that gap, um, I think is it was brilliant to watch. It's the kind of football that I really like to watch. So well played to Kenneth Walker. He deserved the MVP of the game. I don't think he was the reason that they won. I think Seattle would have had enough anyway. to win the game without needing him to go for that many yards, but that his performance put the game to bed. Um, so anyway, let's get into the real crux of the problem, which was actually the X factor that I highlighted last week, the O line play, and I've specifically pulled out Will Campbell, not because I want to be mean to him. He was partially injured coming into the game. I know he picked up an injury towards the end of the regular season, um, but his performance really cost them. The left side of the Patriots O line. So they were both rookies. Him and Jared Wilson, both rookies, but they combined for 18 pressures and 2.5 sacks between them. That's just not a recipe for winning football. Will Campbell on his own gave up 14 pressures and 1.5 sacks. You can't you can't be doing that in the Super Bowl. He was their first round pick, high first round pick. Um, and look, maybe the injury played a part, and Seattle certainly targeted him. But you know, allowing your quarterback to be pressured that much, it was like 26% of dropbacks he was pressured on. Like, it's just no good, and it's really cost them in the end because Drake May just had no time to do anything. Drake May also was not good in this game, so it's not all on Will Campbell. It's not all on the O line, but he Will Campbell specifically did not help at all. And I feel like there's going to be a real pile on him in the media. So I do feel for him a bit because he's a rookie and he was carrying an injury, but he some of the technical stuff that he was doing just wasn't good. Um, one of the sacks, I can't remember who it was that picked it up, but Will Campbell picks up the block and essentially just walks back into the pocket, which you just can't be doing. You have to force him one way or the other. Just don't back him into your quarterback because it's just that then Drake May's gonna have to move, and the rusher again. I can't remember who it was, but the rushers he's gonna go one way or the other out of that block and get Drake May immediately. So um, I do feel for him a little bit, but at the same time, like this is the Super Bowl. You're going to be criticised, and his performance was not good enough. The O line didn't play well in general, but Will Campbell really stood out as a weak spot. Um, anyway, let's get off of that. I don't like picking on people that much. For me, it was a gripping game. Um, I had this debate with the guys that I was watching the game with because they are not necessarily big fans of these like defensive slugfests. But I really like watching it. As I said earlier, points need to be earned. I didn't want to watch like a 45, 44. That would have been close and exciting, but I don't really want to watch that. I don't want to watch defenses just give up everything. Like you're not earning that yardage. Whereas in this game, everything was earned, and credit to both defenses. But yeah, ultimately, New England just had no answer. Josh McDaniels had nothing to give Drake May to try and create anything offensively at all in this game. I know they put some points on the board late, but that's always going to happen when you're chasing the game. We saw it last year with the Chiefs. The Chiefs did not play well enough offensively to put up the 20 points that they put up last year against the Eagles. It was an absolute bloodbath in that game, and because they just started slinging the ball at the end, you're going to pick up some yardage. You're going to pick up some. You're going to pick up some points, but at the end of the day, it was too little, too late. They really had no answer at all for Seattle. Which brings me to the final point, which is this a future dynasty for Seattle? I don't like all the hyperbole that comes every single year. You see it in the NBA, you see it in the NFL about the team that everybody's just watched win the Super Bowl in a dominant fashion. I think it's safe to say it was pretty dominant. Um, Everybody likes to talk about how they're going to be a dynasty and how nobody's going to beat them. Um, nobody's going to be able to dethrone these guys for the next 5 to 10 years. Not that they're going to win every Super Bowl, but you know what I mean. Like they're going to be there. I do think Seattle's going to be very good. Um, Mike McDonald's clearly shown that he is a special defensive mind, and if they keep the quality on that side of the ball, they can really be good for however long he's there. However, I don't see dynasty. I think the field really opened up this year. There was a lot of teams which people thought, including myself, were going to provide much more resistance than they did this year, and they're gonna be back. They're gonna be back with a vengeance, and it's gonna be really interesting to see how Seattle copes being the hunted rather than the hunters. Yeah, think about last year with with Philadelphia. Nobody could see how they were going to be dethroned, and they've come into this year and it just hasn't been the same. The NFL is king when it comes to parity in sport. Um, no team, unless you've got really special combination of key players throughout your team forming like a real spine, like we saw in New England and with the Chiefs, the two most recent dynasties, unless you've really got elite minds and players in those spots, I don't think dynasty's on the table. And we'll see how the offseason plays out. We'll see how teams strengthen and shift focus, and teams now are going to have to build out in a way that they know they can beat Seattle because Seattle's the team to beat. So it will be really interesting to see how the offseason plays out. Congratulations to Seattle. They definitely deserved it this year. Create Congratulations to Sam Darnold. Um, I'm a big fan, and I've mentioned on a couple of videos how I'm really impressed with his resurgence and determination to sort of push through the criticism. So well done to him, and yeah, congratulations, Seattle. You're the best of the bunch. That's gonna do it for this very short episode of Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Um, if you're listening and you've got any opinions or topic suggestions, drop them in the comments, and we'll see if we can hit them in the off season. Another season of the NFL's over. It makes me sad every year because the next thing we think about is we've got to wait 6 months until we get back into the action. But there's loads of activity to happen in the off season, loads of team building, loads of speculation. So we'll get into all of that in future episodes. As always, thank you for listening and stay safe.